Hey everybody, welcome to EduMatch Tweet and Talk number 1515. So today is a big day because we're doing a doubleheader. As Drake would say, we're going back to back. So we're doing one episode on classroom management strategies, and then after that we're going to have the EduMatch turn up. So be sure to join us for that. That should happen right around 6:30 Eastern Standard Time. Follow along with us on our Google Hangout, which you're probably doing right now if you're seeing us talking. Also follow along with us on our Twitter chat with the hashtag EduMatch. Speaking of that, this might be the time when you want to sign up to be the featured person of the day, because in our second show, we're going to be giving away some fabulous prizes and drawing right from that list. So make sure that you join us for that. So tonight's topic, we are going to be talking classroom management strategies. And right on time, we have our fabulous moderator, Dorian, who is back with us. So Dorian, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our discussion tonight. I wanted to just recap that we are talking about classroom management, and we're going to set a presence and see what everybody's thinking about when it comes to classroom management. I want to start off and ask Jennifer, what are some of the things that you use that has worked for you in regards to classroom management?
All right. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Jennifer, and I'm from Ontario, Canada, a little town called Newmarket. And I teach teachers. And I remember speaking to somebody in our Voxer group who said, well, when you teach teachers, they're the toughest students. So one of the things that has worked for me both in the classroom as well as with teachers is, and I don't know if you have this in the States, but it's tribes. I've done some tribes training, and one of the things that they did was they talked about the 4 sort of rules of engagement for tribes. And number 1 is mutual respect. Number 2 is attentive listening. Number 3 is no put-downs, and number 4 is right to pass. So right from the beginning of the year, we established that those are the 4 rules, and we talk about what they mean, and then we ask if anyone wants to add anything else to them, and then it sort of becomes our classroom rules. And I do that with teachers as well. You know, mutual respect, attentive listening, not putting down ideas or people, and I just find that that really works with most of my learners, because there's a target. You know, once in a while we need to have a meeting and sort of remind ourselves, but it really seems to work for me. So.
Unmute.
Jennifer, we have something very similar down here. The thing that we've been trained on here in Florida is called CHAMPS. And it works with creating those classroom norms at the beginning of the year and holding the students accountable, holding the teacher accountable to those same rules. For me, I really only have the one rule of respect, because everything else falls under that, and we talk about that quite frequently in my classroom. The other side of classroom management, though, is effective lesson planning as well. You know, generally speaking, the fewer problems are on days that I have everything really planned out well. So, you know, having downtime just leads to a little bit more chaos.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing, Tammy. How about you, Shana?
Get that unmuted. There we go. I would say for me, it's getting to know my kids. From now, I'm a technology coordinator, but I think the big thing for me was getting to know my students. Greeting them at the door is huge. Being able to know them by name after week 1 was huge. A lot of the kids were amazed that, and I taught health and PE, so I'd have classes of 40 and 50 kids, and I made a point to make sure I knew every kid's name by the end of the week 1. That was huge because it showed the kids that I cared and I was interested in getting to know them. And then, like Tammy said, the little downtime, I was in middle school, and you cannot let them be squirrely. You cannot give them time to be squirrely and squirm and do whatever. So effective lesson planning, making sure you have all your ducks in a row, making sure you have a plan B if plan A does not work, especially when you're thinking about technology. But I would say for me, it's just getting to know my kids, developing a relationship with them, and showing that I cared, and that sincerity and the genuine nature of my interaction with them. Kids always wanted to behave, and it was always beneficial to have that 2 or 3 in the class that were the leaders. They would get on the ones that weren't behaving, and I didn't have to put anybody in check. I had the kids kind of do more peer pressure, and I liked that style rather than me being the domineering person in the front of the room, to allow the kids to regulate themselves. They knew what the proper behavior was, and they actually kept each other in check. And I think that helped, and I think it's because I established relationships with them early.
Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing. All valid points. How about you, Christian? Do you have any tips in regards to what you've been using and what works for you?
For myself, I am an instructional technology coach and co-teacher this year. However, I've taught 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grades in the past. One thing I will definitely say is, piggybacking off of what Shana brought up, is just making sure you develop the relationships. You can't do anything else if you don't have the relationships established. The students won't respect you, which means nothing will happen. And at the end of the day, the students won't remember what you taught them as much as you made them feel. I think that's really big in itself, and I do think it's a matter of establishing that culture in your room. One thing that I used in my room a lot, and I still use in the lab that I'm in, is what's called our guiding principles. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Expeditionary Learning's design principles, but they're basically Expeditionary Learning's design principles, and there are 10 of them. You can kind of think of them like character ed traits, but you can also kind of think of them as just traits that you want to see a lifelong learner use. Success and failure, collaboration and competition. The kids know those, and we used to spend we'll take out one of those design principles and talk about it for like one day. And that honestly helped out the students and helped to build the culture within the classroom. So I think that's a big thing. And another big thing, I think this is just elementary, but Class Dojo works really, really well. I think when you have that communication tool with the parents and really showing them what the student is doing, giving them the rewards, I think it kind of starts off as kind of being extrinsic, but it starts to build that intrinsic motivation. So I think those are things that I've just done with them, and I can say that it has worked.
Thank you so much, Christian. I'm going to have to piggyback on what you said. I am a Class Dojo fanatic. It has worked with me pretty much kindergarten through 8th grade. So we are on the same wavelength. How about you, Valerie? What are some of your down-home principles that you hold with classroom management?
I think most teachers rely on that good old handy-dandy seating chart at times. I try to stay away from that at the beginning of the year until the kids prove themselves incapable of handling the freedom of sitting with their peers. Because I like to set up my classroom in a way where it automatically screams collaboration. I hate the rows and the desks and the columns. So if anybody knows anything about me, I just want to throw those things out the window. So classroom design for me is a big thing. It communicates the type of behaviors that are expected in the room and what kind of things we need to handle and accomplish from a day-to-day basis. But as Christian mentioned, using tools like Class Dojo to communicate with parents, I am big on communicating with parents. My students know that I'm that teacher. If they say, oh, I need to go to the restroom, they have a 2-minute time frame. And if they're not back in 2 minutes, they know I'm already looking at the door, or I may literally show up at the mouth of the restroom. Are you in there? It's time to come back and get this good old learning. And they're like, oh my God, Ms. Lewis, you really came to the bathroom? Yes, because I missed you. You were gone too long and I had some good stuff for you. So now they've actually learned that if Ms. Lewis says go to the bathroom for 2 minutes, you better be back before 2 minutes, or she's liable to back up the whole classroom, and we're coming to look for you. And they understand that I'm going to email parents. As soon as that grade starts dropping, I'm letting the parents know, hey, such and such hasn't turned in homework this whole week, or there was a major project that was due and I didn't get it. Is there something going on? You know, you guys having internet issues? Is there something that I can assist with? And a lot of times the parents are very appreciative of getting that information, because what I always hear is, I didn't even know he had a project that was due. He never said anything about a project or didn't mention. I asked him last night and he said he had nothing to do. So I think communication has a lot to do with your management, and Remind is another tool that allows you to communicate with your students, help them remember the tasks that perhaps they didn't get to write down in their agenda books. But I also encourage my parents to sign up for Remind as well. So that way the students aren't saying, I didn't remember, but they're also, the parents are saying, oh yeah, Ms. Lewis sent out the text, I know what you got due tonight. So I think all of those things, you need to be a with it teacher. You need to know the terminology. You need to know the lingo that the kids are using. You need to know a little bit of the music that they're listening to, because I think all of that has to do with the relationship and the rapport. So I think if you can master all of those things together, you'll pretty much have a really good handle on your classroom management skills.
Thank you so much, Valerie. Very insightful. And last but not least, we say the best for last. Carla, what are your viewpoints on classroom management? Please share.
I don't know if there's very much that I can say that hasn't already been shared. I definitely believe that students crave discipline and structure. So being consistent is so important. I'm mentoring. I'm actually a technology coordinator, but this is my first year out of the classroom. So I was a middle school teacher for 17 years. And the person who took my job as a first-year teacher, and so we've spent a lot of time together with classroom management and lesson planning. And I told her, I said, be firm. If you say you're going to do something, make sure that you do it. Don't engage, don't allow them to argue or back you up in a corner, just be firm and be consistent. But I definitely agree that relationships are important, and I always say that a parent may not be able to help a child with their algebra homework. As a English teacher, I won't be able to. I'm having trouble with my fourth graders' homework sometimes, but they can say, you will not disrupt Ms. Jefferson's classroom because I know that she wants what's best for you. So building that relationship with parents, staying consistent, communicating with them regularly, and I definitely providing positive and negative consequences, but you always want more positive than negative. And what I've learned over the years that if you say, Amy, I really like the way you came in and got started, and I use Class Dojo and Remind as well, and I give her a point for doing that, the rest of them will fall into place. So, find ways to be positive with students, and I also believe that who you are will transfer down the line. Like when you get to the point where you're teaching siblings, or cousins, and you can say, ask your friends about me, ask them who I am, ask them, and they'll say, she doesn't play. I mean, it's just building that relationship and staying consistent, but because you want them, you don't want to worry about being their friends, because you are not their friends. You are there to assist them in becoming better learners and stronger, in whatever you're dealing with. But you still want to have that relationship. I love Rita Pearson's TED Talk, where she talks about the teacher that said, well, they don't pay me to like them or for them to like me. They pay me to teach them. And she said, well, honey, your year is going to be long and arduous. And that's true. If you don't build relationships with those children, then they're not even going to want to hear what you say. So I'm just probably reiterating what everybody else said, but I think all of those things are so true and appropriate.
Absolutely, Carla. Thank you so much on your thoughts. Jennifer wanted to also contribute some final thoughts towards the end of this question. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Well, I don't know if they're final thoughts, and I love being on a panel with so many wise and wonderful people, but something that struck me earlier when Shana and Tammy were talking about effective lesson planning, and I think it was Shana who said the squirreliness of kids. I think we have to be really aware of the fact that kids need to move. I know I use the Move It extension on Chrome. we have to build in opportunities for kids to get up and do and move, and we have to really establish with them, what does it mean to pay attention? What does that look like? In addition to all the wonderful points that were made tonight.
Thank you, Jennifer. One of my next question is going to be, we talked a lot about building relationships with students, getting to know where they're at, and we talked about discipline and having a structured classroom. Is there anybody on the panel who would like to elaborate on those thoughts as well?
I don't mind. I always like to share a story. And of course, times have changed. That was, oh my goodness, these children are grown now, so that's probably 12 years ago. But, you know, setting expectations, we talk about, I always tell students, and we say this all the time, you know, who you really are is how you behave when no one is watching. And my principal came to me, like I said, this was probably 10 or 12 years ago. I probably would never do that now, but we taught in teams, and my partner's door was right next. There was actually a door in between our two classrooms, so if someone had to leave for an emergency, we just opened the door. And my principal came to me, and he said, Miss Malloy, I came by your classroom. I said, you did? I didn't see you. He said, that's because you weren't in there. I said, oh, okay. So he said, now, I'm not advocating that, but the children were working. And I said, yeah. He said, so I asked them why were they working, or I asked them where Miss Malloy was, and they told me she stepped out for a minute. He said, well, why are you working? And they looked at him and they said, she's coming back. So, you know, just being consistent, I can't say that enough, but also, like, I think Shana said, like, allowing them to learn how to regulate themselves, because we're not always going to be around. There are situations where they are going to be with peers or with other people, and they're going to have to make sound decisions for themselves. So we shouldn't rely on ourselves to be the person that has to regulate them all the time. So teaching, I guess, is it self-efficacy maybe? You know, teaching them how to be responsible adults, teaching them to make better choices helps us when they're in our classroom, but it also helps them when they're not with us.
Thank you, Carla. I appreciate that. That was a wonderful story. Christian, do you have any thoughts as well to add?
I think going back to this conversation, because I'm just making notes, but I think, like, going back to Carla and about the kids just working on their own and they know the expectation, that's big. I work with all the new teachers this year in my building. And one thing I've told the new teachers is that you got to have high expectations, but you also have to model it for the students. You have to make it consistent. You have to be clear with it. You just can't say, I need you to work. What does that look like? What does it look like? How should it look? Model it for them, because sometimes we can say, I'm making it clear, but communication is not always easy for everyone. You know, we need to make sure that everyone understands, and I think that's a big thing. I also think morning meetings is a big, huge thing for me. Every morning my class would come in, they will sit down, get started on their morning work, and after announcements were over, there was a song that would play, and they will go and greet each other. They either had to do a handshake, a pinky shake, or a fist bump. And it was going to be to a song that they knew that was relevant to the guiding principle for today. So we're talking about the primacy of self-discovery. We're going to listen to Katy Perry's Roar. We're going to analyze those lyrics, which also goes back to poetry, which is a standard, and being able to understand the song itself. So I think that is a big thing as well, and just having a chance to really build that culture, giving shout-outs as a class and to individuals. And it goes back to just basically not just treating the kids as just kids, but treating them as people. And I think once you do that and they can see that you're being human with them, then they're going to respect you more.
I completely agree, Christian, and I think the other thing to piggyback off you is involving them in the process. If they feel that they have a say as far as, like, with my rules and expectations, we sit there and we critically think together as a class, what do you think that this class should look like? And what do you think should be the positive and negative repercussions or consequences for the decisions you make in this class, so that they take ownership of the behaviors themselves they make, but also their classmates. And I think that if you engage students in the beginning that way, not only modeling the behavior you want your kids to have, but you also allow them to have power and say into what they want their classroom to look like. I like how Valerie said that she molds her desk in certain ways. I'm the same way. I mean, I'm a health and PE teacher at heart, so we move all the time. That squirreliness, I invite it. I like kids to move around. We never sit in a desk. Even when I was in a health classroom, we were getting up, we were moving, we were being physically active. But I think if you allow the kids to kind of involve their critical thinking skills and help them develop them to say, hey, what do you think this classroom should look like? How is it going to make you be an effective learner? What does this need to look like for you? And you let them involve themselves in the process while you also model the behavior that you want, I think is huge, because they buy in when they feel like they have some responsibility to how a classroom is going to look. It's a lot easier to get kids to buy in. I think it's great to know the hip things that are going on, but I think when kids see you modeling the behavior that they want, but also that they have some sort of power or ability to enact change in their classroom, I think that's also a huge, huge piece and a huge component that a lot of teachers miss, because they don't want to relinquish the control. But sometimes you have to allow the children, even middle school, even elementary, even high school, to kind of take a step forward, advocate for themselves, be able to establish their learning environment that they want to have so that they can be optimal learners the entire time they're in your classroom.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to tie this up. If you were to give any advice to any first-year teacher, what would your advice be in regards to classroom management?
I would say be authentic, like be yourself. Sometimes, well, I just say children know when we're not being ourselves. They know when we're being fake. And so, you know, you just have to be yourself. You have to be consistent. You have to be firm. Make sure that you almost have to think of things before they even happen. I love what Christian said about those guiding principles and having conversations about them, like what Shana said about involving them in the process. Like I told my first year teacher, be firm, be fair, be consistent.
But don't beat yourself up if you have a bad day or if you're not consistent and you're learning how to be consistent. Don't beat yourself up on it. You know, tomorrow starts a new day, get right back on it.
And to add to that, don't be afraid to regroup as a class and talk about what's happening here, what's going wrong. And I think, you know, we'll be amazed when we do give kids a voice that they'll be able to articulate some of the things that they need.
I would say
I would say make sure you rely on your other teachers in the building too for advice and suggestions for things that worked for them.
I was just going to add that I think the biggest thing for any new teacher is don't be afraid of the parents. Get to know them. They will work with you when you form that bond with them. They just want to know that you care about their child.
Okay, and I'm going to turn everything back to Sarah.
All right, everybody. Such a great discussion tonight. I would like to thank Dorian for moderating this chat, as well as all of our panelists for all of their great insight, and everyone who is following along on the EduMatch hashtag on Twitter and watching us on the Google Hangouts. So thank you all so much. This was an amazing conversation. The Twitter chat will be storified, and this Google Hangout on air will be available as an iTunes podcast. So join us in 4 minutes. If you're still around, in 4 minutes, we are going to turn around and start turning up for the EduMatch 1-year anniversary. So definitely check us out. Can't wait to chat with you then. And next week, we're also going to be talking about time management hacks. So check us out at bit.ly/tweettalk16. Tweet Talk 16. So join us next week. Same bad time, same bad channel. All right. Have a great, great night, everyone.